Thank you very much, Irene. Yeah, so I'm Dáithí Kelleghan, as Irene introduced me. I lead the air quality modelling team. And we've been leading the Life Emerald project that Laura mentioned earlier today. So this is really about developing Ireland's air quality modelling infrastructure, which we didn't have much of before. But I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey today between, from the data that's collected in the field right through, how it feeds into our maps and our models, and then how we communicate that then to the public. Because that's what we really want at the end of the day, is to get this information to the public and into the public's minds. So the Emerald project, it was 1.7 million in total. 48.5% was EC funded, but we also received substantial funding from the Irish state. And we in the EPA, we were the coordinating beneficiary. And as I said, the real focus of this project was to strengthen the air quality management in Ireland using modelling to kind of develop that infrastructure that we will have to support air quality in Ireland for years to come. So just to highlight, these were our direct project partners, and these were a number of stakeholders who are intrinsically involved in both setting up and running the project, but will also be involved in gathering data and involved in the supporting the models going forward too. And it's always worth thanking your stakeholders. So again, just want to thank everybody that was involved in the Life Emerald project. So where do we start? We start with the data that's collected in the field from our monitoring network. Now this was mentioned earlier. These are our 115 air quality monitoring stations across Ireland. It's quite a substantial network after the recent expansion. So these are great for informing the public themselves in the locations where we have monitoring, but as was highlighted earlier, we can't have monitoring everywhere. So you need to use something else to kind of use this data to translate it into a way that we can have a map of air quality across the entire country. But we do actually at least have a monitoring station within each county, and it creates substantial data that we are able to to use it to feed into the models. And it's not only is it important for using this to inform the public, but it's also really, really important for compliance with European directives. And again, another thank you to, I know a number of people in the audience who are here today will be involved in some of these stations and maintain them. So again, thank you to everyone who helps maintain these 115 stations, because it is no small task. So where we go from there, we go into the models. So basically from the Life Emerald project, we developed 3 different modeling systems: a daily air quality forecast, an hourly updated air quality index for health map, and annual high resolution maps as well. And these are all publicly available on epa.ie and www.airquality.ie. And we're maintaining and verifying these maps indefinitely into the future. So we are keeping the foot on the gas and keeping these model outputs alive. So you can see this is the landing page when you go on to airquality.ie, and you see this is the hourly updated air quality index for health map overlaid by the various monitoring stations. So not only is it important for informing the public these modelling, but as mentioned earlier as well, modelling is now intrinsic to the updated CAFE directive. So now there's a legal requirement for us to do air quality modelling, and it's intrinsic to the new requirements of the directive. So not only are the air quality forecasts we produce required to be provided to the public, but we also need to do these things called roadmaps and air quality plans, so we can plan for what future scenarios are going to be, and actions we take now and how they are going to impact future air quality. So air quality modelling is essential in providing those plans. We also needed to basically, if we do have a monitored exceedance, we need to be able to use the models to look at the area that's exceeded, because the monitoring station is just for one location, whereas the model will kind of give us an expanded view of the area around which is an exceedance. That's very important, because especially now that the CAFE directive limits are decreasing, we are going to start to see air quality concentrations at levels which do exceed European thresholds. So that's going to be very important going forward as well. And also we need to do spatial representativeness assessments. And what this essentially is looking at, well, how effective is our monitoring network at capturing the full diversity of air quality across the country? So we are looking at, is there enough monitoring in areas of high pollution, low pollution, medium pollution, and we're capturing the full spectrum of air quality across the country, which thankfully we currently are. And also, linking, making sure we're applying a harmonized approach that links up with all other EU member states, and not one member state is doing something widely different to all the others. We're all kind of communicating and linking up and, pairing together with similar modeling systems. So this is the next step on. So we've collected our data from our monitoring stations. What do we do next? How does it feed into our forecast? So the way this works is we calculate an air quality forecast for each individual monitoring station. So for all stations where we're doing the monitoring. And we do this for PM2.5, PM10, NO2, and ozone, and the air quality index for health. And it's basically depending on what is monitored at each station. So it generates a forecast for today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. And the way that what the data that feeds into this is not just the monitoring data, but also meteorology, weather forecasts, and EU air quality forecast data as well. And it goes into our current neural network. Now, what that means is essentially it's a back data box. It feeds all these data streams into it, and then from that we generate these forecasts. So you can see the red line is the forecast data, and the black line is the monitored observations. So you can see, there's one peak here. This is just an example of data I took from Blanchardstown from September to December last year, because it's where I live. So I just wanted to give you an example of what the forecast looked like relative to the observations. You see, it can miss some big peaks, but it's in terms of capturing when you're reaching exceedance, it does work very effectively. And then when we work that out for each individual station, that all feeds into the mapping system. So we go from the generating the forecast for each station to spreading that out across the entire country with a map based principally on various spatial drivers such as land use, elevation, population density, emissions, and we use that to generate these nice maps of air quality forecasts. So we do this twice a day, every day. So it's kind of running automatically, and we are just involved in the process of verifying it and checking it, making sure that it's running correctly. And then the way it works for the Air Quality Index for Health is basically it takes the worst pollutant within each 3 by 3 kilometre grid, and then that's what informs the Air Quality Index for Health. So you can see on the right, I have an example from over the summer when ozone was driving the Air Quality Index for Health. So that was quite a hot weekend. So when you got hot weather, you get increased levels of ozone due to secondary atmospheric chemical reactions. So on the Friday, it was a bit around the edge. And then Saturday, great day, one of the few great weekends we had. There was a little bit more. And just to flag again, this is just an example of the forecast working in general. A level of 4 for ozone is not necessarily worrying or problematic, but it's just to show the forecast in action. And then by Sunday, it was, we're losing the good weather and it was getting a little bit duller. And then we go into the hourly updated index, the Air Quality Index for Health. And what this does is, rather than using the forecast data that's generated, it uses the real-time data collected by the network. So this generates a fantastic map that kind of fills in all the gaps across the country using live data. And you can see this is a weekend in December last year where it was driven by PM 2.5 from residential solid fuel burning. If we go back, I might play again. And you can just see that the air pollution does get worse, and you even see pockets of red appearing down here in Clare and down in Cork as well, and it gets spreading out over the country. And that's based on the previous 24 hours for PM 2.5, 8 hours for ozone, and 1 hour for nitrogen dioxide. And that's just kind of complying with the Air Quality Index for Health approach that has been developed for mapping air quality in Ireland. And we go from there. We've now done our forecast. We've now done our hourly updated maps. We now also have annual high-resolution maps. Now, these are incredibly detailed maps that present air quality across the entire country up to 10 by 10 meters resolution in urban areas. So they're really, really detailed. And it allows for full coverage of NO2, ozone, and PM10 and PM2.5. And it's kind of, these are built on a tiered system. So it uses the same mapping system for the hourly forecast and the updated maps as kind of the background. Then on top of that is layered dispersion models for residential emissions and then traffic. And on top of that is another model which looks at the effect of street canyons. So if you've got tall buildings either side of a street, the air behaves differently in those canyons than if there was no tall buildings. So it kind of models that effect as well. So these all ran in a supercomputer because it just requires a lot of processing to develop these models because they're incredibly detailed. And I'm happy to say as of today, we're officially launching the airquality.ie annual maps page, which has interactive map viewers of these maps available to the public. So we have 2019, 2021, 22, 23 for all NO2, ozone, PM10, and PM2.5. And just scrolling on the side of the screen are just examples of the different years for NO2 and PM2.5. I won't dwell on it too long because I've limited time. But just to flag as well, these are great for tracking trends over time. So we can see here, just looking in at Dublin City, for 2019, 2021, 22, and 23, we can see NO2 changing throughout the years because, obviously, we didn't do 2020 because of COVID. And then, as expected, 2021 had lower concentrations because, again, I think people were driving less. But you can see, even comparing 2019 to 2023, or less of 22 to 23, you can see that there is less areas in Dublin City that are red and orange, so showing decreasing air quality in the centre of the city. But alarmingly, along the M50, we're starting to see yellow actually increase. So you can see there are areas that are increasing while other areas are decreasing. And the take home from that is, even, I'm just speaking anecdotally, there's more people working from home, but the artifact of that is people have now changed their driving behaviours. So instead of, they now live further away from Dublin, so they're more likely to commute into Dublin, but they drive longer distances. So people are driving longer distances, but taking fewer journeys. So you can see that kind of, and I'm sure if anyone has ever tried driving on the M50 lately, they can agree that, you know, the traffic on the M50 is particularly bad in the last year, and it's reflected in our models. And then just as part of the Life Environment project, we wanted to see, well, how is the public engaging with air quality information in general? Because we wanted to be able to know this going forward for how do we best communicate our maps and our models to the public. So we did 2 surveys, one in 21 and one in 2024, where 1,000 people were interviewed in both surveys. And unfortunately, we weren't expecting this result, but there was a drop in the perception of people that believed air pollution was a serious risk nationally. So there's a drop in 5% from 24 to 21, from 21 to 24. But at least it was still 61% of people believed that it was a problem nationally. However, the flip side of that is only 34% believed it was a problem locally, which is not necessarily the case. It's actually a bigger issue locally, you know, because it's particularly for PM2.5. Many rural small towns across Ireland have big issues with PM2.5. That's not necessarily reflective of the national scale. You know, we've talked about earlier how nationally Ireland compares favourably with other EU member states, but we have lots of small towns in Ireland that have pretty serious PM2.5 issues, and with the current decreasing limits, that's going to become more and more obvious. But I didn't want to end it on a bad note, and just to flag that there is some glimmers of hope that people are cycling and walking more, which might be reflective of the potential decrease we're seeing in Dublin city centre. Energy efficient homes are considered a key to future changes in reducing air pollution, so that's always good. But yeah, so it really brings it home that we need to consider how we are communicating this to the public, and to try and make sure that our messages are landing home to them. So in the agency, we've recently kind of adapted our annual air quality report. It used to be quite a long report to get through. It's now changed the format. It's an interactive dynamic PDF report. There's embedded videos and graphics. We've got positive stakeholder feedback on it. And the videos kind of scrolling through some of the pages in it, but you know, all of these, you know, there's numerous clickable links within it that'll bring you to new pages, to pop-ups, to videos. It's a great report and a great way of communicating scientific information to the general public. But yeah, and I think going forward, we will be strongly linking in our air quality maps and models with this report going forward into the future as well, and hoping it sinks home. But we'll also be looking at other opportunities and other ways of communicating this information to the public as well. And of course, we need to also mention the State of the Environment report. There's a whole chapter in here on air quality, which is, you know, it's a flagship State of the Environment report, which is integrated assessment of overall quality of Ireland's environment. As I said, there's a chapter dedicated to air quality. It's very detailed. It outlines the current state of Ireland's environment at a strategic level. But I think it's also available on w.epa.ie, but it's also very much worth a read. I think this audience in particular would benefit. If you haven't already read the air quality chapter and our annual air quality report, I would highly recommend them as good bedside reads. Thank you very much.